That's fine.
Okay.
Good morning and welcome to the Up Zone, where understanding politics is made simple. We are your two hosts. I am Tisha S. Waddell, a former city council person for the 3rd District in the city of Fayetteville, and Mr. Elmer Floyd, and he is a former House representative for the 43rd District, current candidate for the 42nd District in the state of North Carolina. We are really just here to make understanding the political landscape simpler. And the reality is, Mr. Floyd, it is a very complex thing to break down.
It's a complex, and you're right. And by the way, the campaign is going good. Let me throw
Good,
that in.
good. Glad to hear
Okay.
it.
It's going very well, and contributions is coming in, So, but it's a very difficult field to get people to understand how the sausage factory makes the sausage.
Yeah, for sure.
And although we eat it, but we don't understand the complexity of the sausage making factory.
Right.
And what we try to do really is to make it a little bit more simple for people to understand, Tish. And thank you for allowing me to be, on the program with you.
I always tell you this is your show. I'm just here. But the reality is, and Mr. Floyd, the sad part about it is when you have people who work in the factory or have worked in the factory and they come out to tell you the trade secrets and people still don't pay attention, that's the sad part. But at the end of the day, I think what I'm learning, I've learned over the course of, I think we've been at this podcast for almost 3 years. And I believe that what I'm learning at the end of the day is that the most important thing is not that we force people to learn, but that we make the information available so that for those who choose to learn, they have somewhere that they can go to get this information. Now, Mr. Floyd, let me just say this.
Mm.
The other night the wind was whipping and I had my window cracked and it was howling outside. And I woke up at like about 6 o'clock in the morning and I was looking outside. It might have been a little before 6. I was looking outside because it sounded like traffic was coming down my street, which is very weird because that just would not be happening. But when I looked, wasn't nothing out there but the wind, Mr. Floyd. The wind
Mhm.
sounded like trucks rushing down the street.
Well, Tish, you can't, put up a shield when God does his work.
You cannot. And I'm glad you said that. You surely cannot.
You can't do it. So you just might as well just prepare yourself and just brace yourself and be as safe as
As you
possible.
possibly can. Absolutely. And so that's
And
what I
here's the
did.
message. Here's to the warning.
Yeah, yeah. And so what I did when I woke up, I shut the window because I didn't want to hear that. So I shut the window and I just prayed. I prayed for our community. I prayed for my neighborhood. I prayed for the believers, and I prayed for my home. And I just was very grateful, Mr. Floyd, that when it was all said and done, we did not experience mass power outages. We don't have people today that are still trying to figure out how to keep their homes warm or how to, the people whose stuff is turned on, how to keep their homes warm or how to keep their food cold, or how to cook something to eat because we're still rolling. And in that, I can say that God is good. But you are right. Heed the warnings and be prepared. And this is the season for preparation, right? Like this I don't know if we're like transitioning into hurricane season early or I don't know what it is, but most certainly be prepared. Floyd, we were getting tornado warnings. So I would tell
Yeah.
our audience get some understanding of to how to properly and adequately be prepared in the event of an emergency.
Well, Tish, when you really, that's why they call us the sand hill, because we are in a very sandy region. And some are valley, where that a lot of the weather sort of go over us. Now, when you look at the map, that's most of your TV provides, the temperature,
Mm-hmm.
the sand hill, 95 plus percent of the time, the temperature is higher
Right. Right.
when in comparison to
Thank
counties.
goodness.
Around.
I'm
Okay.
thankful for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
So
Floyd,
really, mhm.
no, go ahead.
No. So really, it's really never a cold period. You know, we may have it for a day or for two. If we can sell anything, we ought to be able to sell the weather in Cumberland County and the
Absolutely.
same because of the
Absolutely.
temperature.
We have great weather, that's for sure. Mr. Floyd, what's going on? I know we're coming up on Martin Luther King weekend, and before we jump into that, I have to say it because anytime we talk about Martin Luther King, I like to go on record as saying that that statue don't look nothing like him in MLK Park. So now moving forward, what's going on this year for MLK weekend? What are the
Well,
things that people can participate in?
well, if we can start off with the town of Spring Lake is having a prayer breakfast tomorrow at 9 o'clock, and then if you look at Saturday, the parade starts at 10 o'clock, and it will go, down Hay Street with a reviewing stand somewhere down by City Hall there, and then on Sunday there is a program, and that will be at Lewis Chapel Church on Rayford Road, and that's going to start about, and that's Fayetteville Ministerial Council. That's going to start around 5 o'clock, and then that Monday morning, the council will have this prayer, prayer breakfast, and those tickets are $30, and that would be at the Crown. So, and then they will have a youth, I think that's the youth activity after then, so it's a very, very busy week for Martin Luther King, activities. And it should be for a person that gave so much, to this nation to get us where we are now. And it seems like all of his work is pushing us back to the years gained that were made.
Mr. Floyd, I'm not gonna touch that with a 10-foot pole today. I'm gonna let your words stand because that is what it is. What it is. It is what it
Yeah.
is. You know, I've
We're in
been
charge.
told,
We are in charge of a lot of governmental offices,
yeah.
but our strives are very limited.
Well, and it makes me wonder who the real problem is.
Well, you know, so, let's just look at it from a standpoint of view about, if I may, the homeless shelter.
Hmm.
Okay, and when we look at it, and you mentioned something, in our conversation earlier part of the week about things are located in certain communities where you get less resistance,
Hmm.
and the homeless shelter location, which is next to what was formerly a school, and it's also, and we talked with Commissioner Evans last week, and he talked about the housing complex, which was within a three-quarter of a mile of the location, that is beginning to have a little bit more criminal activity.
And it's now listen now, the housing complex is beautiful. And I said
Yeah.
this when they rebuilt it. I said you can put lipstick on a pig and it's still a pig. If you don't clean up the culture of a community, you can reface it all you want to, but you have to do something about why the crime exists in the first place. And giving an area that's infiltrated with poverty and crime pretty buildings does not fix the infiltration of the crime. You have to deal with the root cause. And again, I ask the question, I wonder who is really what's really the issue.
Well, you know, and that's what we don't look at. And fast forward in one about what the council member is saying about smoke shops. It is that we want to restrict where they go, but you got to look at the root of it, because if there's a demand, somebody is going to provide the
The
services.
supply,
So,
absolutely.
so
Mr. Floyd, I do going back to what you said about the vote for the special use permit. I owe our audience an apology because we were wrong this time. I was under the impression that it wouldn't fly downtown. I was under the impression
now,
that they would not, but they put it over there
oh, now
in a
listen,
place
let me tell
where
you now. When we say downtown, we're talking about that
Where
what you call that district, that special
the Cool
uh
Springs district.
yeah. But
Yeah,
see,
it's
I
not
knew it
gonna
was not
happen.
gonna
It's
go into
not
that
gonna
area.
happen down there.
Okay, okay, that's what I was speaking of, you
Right.
know, that it wouldn't be nowhere near that area.
Mhm.
So we're talking about a 15 to 17 million dollars facilities, and we're talking about maybe within another 3/4 of a mile is where the city
Right.
facility
And
is.
so they're just stacking poverty and homelessness. And I understand it. I get it. It's the same argument that has been used the against the they call it a prison, but against
The federal housing.
yes, against that.
Yes.
And I understand it. It's they call it NAMBY, not in my backyard, NIMBY.
Mm.
But the truth is, these facilities have to go somewhere. My issue has always been that there should be more clear communication, that there should be more thought to a process of building a community that supports the enrichment of the citizens in that community, and not just making it look good, but actually making it good.
Well, the fact of it is, you go where you get the least resistance.
Hmm.
I mean, that's
Absolutely.
simple. The fact is that the location. I mean, but they had a little
But
problem, but they
also,
came.
Mr. Floyd, they say you go where the need is. And here's the thing. So we have our bus system is really unstructured. I mean, it's structured, but it's really lacking. If you look at a city like a larger city that has a more, and not even larger, but a city that is built more around public transportation, you notice that you are able to spread out some of these services because you are able to get people from point A to point B more seamlessly. We don't really have that. And so it seems like they concentrate everything based upon the ability to get to the target audience. But there has to be, again, there has to be a more comprehensive mechanism put in place. You got to stop concentrating poverty because there's no incentive to not be poor if you're only surrounded by poverty.
Well, Tish, just like what you mentioned about having some form of having a adequate transportation system is much better than where we first started from. But when you look at Fayetteville as a whole, and if you live in Fayetteville, you can go north and south, no
Mhm.
problem. But it's hard for you to go east and west. The only east and west method of transportation, I mean route, is 401 bypass.
Mhm.
That's all that you have. What Fayetteville has to look at, which you won't have during my lifetime, is to have an inner loop. They have an outer loop, uh, and it's truly an outer loop. You
Right.
know, it's not nowhere near where you can get access. I mean, you can get access to it, but it seems like if you want to go on Rayford Road, as an example, way out by the VA clinic, you
Mhm.
can drive down Rose Hill Road and then catch the 295.
Right.
But by the time you get there, you might as well fight the traffic and go down Rayford Road.
It depends on
It's
where you
not
live
accessible. Yeah,
at. It
yeah, it's
depends
not
on where you
accessible.
live.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm
You
saying. For
in
some people,
University of
it's
Space,
good.
you can hit 295 very simply. And I tell you,
Yeah.
I think that that's what makes, and Mr. Floyd, I believe that we are going to see I believe that we are going to see areas that are considered dilapidated and run down, the areas where they're not putting the investment into the neighborhoods. I think we're going to see those be the areas that are going to be subject to gentrification because they're building networks that make those areas logistically desirable. So one of the
Well,
things, I know this is not on our
you're
list to
right.
talk about. Go ahead.
You, you, I mean, you are right. And if we move back to that homeless shelter on let's say Wilmington in the Wilmington Road area, you know, you can look at the improvement that they are making on Person Street to enhance the appearance as you enter into the city.
Right.
Quite accurate. They are narrowing it down from 2 lanes to a traffic jam, from 4 lanes to a 2 lane. coming into uh, the city. So so there is a concern there, but we're going to have to look at how can we move, uh, the traffic itself. Early on, the Martin Luther King Freeway was supposed to cross the river and connect to 301, and then going north and south. But
Right.
some kind of way, the problem came with crossing the river, so that project was stretched.
Right.
And at one point in time, there was a plan to move Langland Street across the city, I think it's pond or lake or whatever, to Bragg Boulevard.
Mm-hmm.
That fell through. So when we look at our overall planning, uh, it's just not good for us to move the population.
Right.
It's just it just if you want to go north and south, good. But if you don't know your way to go east and west, and if 401 bypass have a traffic problem or
Right.
accident, you are going to be lost.
Right. Right. And in a world of trouble. Mr. Floyd, we didn't jump from point one to point last point, but let me get back up to this. Let me go back to these announcements. You said that there's a Democrat debate coming up on February the 10th.
There's a Democrat based debate or discussion or forum, whichever. You never know until you sit down,
Right.
how it's going to be. But that's going to be at the College Lake Rec Center at 10 o'clock
Okay.
on February the 10th. And it's slated for 3 hours. Uh,
That's a long
uh,
time.
that's a that's a long time to
And is that just for House District 42 or is that for
for
multiple
no,
seats?
my understanding is just for 42, and
That's a long time to talk to four people.
that's a long time, and then again, you know you have to look at debates, and with my experience, sometimes debates become stage driven, is that they have plants in the audience
Oh,
to
absolutely.
ask certain people certain questions to make them uncomfortable in their decision making. But I, what I like to see that if you are bold enough to raise the question and to send a question in, and then you ought to be bold enough to
To put
sign
the
it
link
and
to it.
ask it yourself. Okay,
Absolutely.
uh, then you just send it in, and you take the questions up, and then you pass them on to individuals. But I love
Let
it.
me give
I'm
this piece of
prepared
advice
for it.
to all of the candidates, yourself included. We, the people, just want you to be open, honest, and direct. We don't need you guys to politicize us. We don't need you guys to schmooze us. Just tell us like it is because we can handle it. And you know that, Mr. Floyd, because you've been in this game long enough to know that we can handle the truth.
Well, I think that's true, Tish. But when I look at it from a standpoint of view, which you might not know, uh, that many people don't think that, some don't think, let me say, some don't think that a community with 42% of the population in the city and 40% of that population in the county, that you, Tish, are not capable enough of deciding who you want to represent you.
Yeah.
Okay, you are not capable enough
Yeah.
because you're 42% in the city, 40% in the county. So let me tell you who I want you to help me, not help the community, but help me.
Yeah. Our community experienced some grave losses, recently. We have lost attorney Alan Rogers' father, who, and I'm
Yes.
going to tell you, Mr. Floyd, and I think it was Troy Williams who shared with me the stories of what type of man that attorney Rogers' father was. And so when I found out that he passed, instantly I was compelled to send attorney Rogers a message because having heard the stories of his father, I knew that that's a loss. I know that that's a loss because some people, you lose a parent and maybe your parent really wasn't that great, or but it seems like his parent, what like his father was not only a great father but a great man. And when you lose those types of people, it certainly creates a gap in your life that will never be filled. I know when my husband lost his dad, there's nothing that can ever fill the place that his father being gone has left for him.
Well, and having a relationship with Attorney Allen, and understanding his father and his mother is a superb cook.
Yes,
She
I've heard that also.
now that she can cook. Now, one thing that his father would do, he would want all the males to be at his house on Sunday,
And to
and you
be
know what?
dressed, and to be
They had to
dressed.
be dressed.
That's right.
They had to be dressed. Now you
That's
couldn't.
right.
Yeah, I mean, now the it was a feast for the men, but the ladies was also present. But
Yeah.
it was a feast for the men, and attending the wake on that Friday, and attending the homegoing service on Wednesday. I mean on Saturday, although it was raining, it was a well attended homegoing
Yeah, I
service
can
for his
imagine.
father.
I can imagine. And I'll tell you this. I've been accused of having very antiquated ideas of relationship, and I do, Mr. Floyd, because I
Mm,
base my ideas of what a man is and what a woman is off of what the Bible says, and that's a real old book. So my mindset is very old. So when you tell me about the feast for the men and the women being present, I think that's such a beautiful thing. I think that it teaches order. And I can say this, attorney, I've never been disrespected by Attorney Alan Rogers.
mhm.
I have never been disrespected by him. And I know that I'm sure that I've rubbed him the wrong way on more occasion than one, but he has never disrespected me. And I think that that speaks to his upbringing. It
Mhm.
speaks to his upbringing. And I think that even and he is not without flaw or without fault, but I think the fact even that he's been able to bounce back from some of the hardships and the hurdles that he's faced speaks to the kind of father that he had, because it is our mothers and our fathers that teach us how to be men and women.
Well, teach another thing too. When you look at Attorney Rogers, not dismissing any attorneys,
Right.
you uh, you always see his name associated with more activities than other attorneys. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, he gives so much, and I know from time to time, he called me and want to know why I didn't show up for for a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And he wants to know, jokingly, did you lose the conversation? Because he talking with he always talked to you, just as a not from a legal standpoint of view, but you notice that his question is always juggling a little bit of legal expertise in his
Yeah.
argument. And when he get the best, sometimes you just say, "Okay, Alan, you
Yeah.
well,
You got it.
okay,
You
Alan,
got
we got it, we
it.
got it, Alan. We,
Yeah.
yeah, but he turn you around to that legal standpoint, and he seen his father sing, Alan sing, so
Yeah.
it's a loss for the family there. But not only his family, one of the other matriarch passed away, and that
Miss
was
Wiseman.
Miss Wiseman,
Yeah.
and
Well, share a little bit about her,
she,
because I've not had an occasion to have those same kind of conversations.
well,
Share about
she was what you might call a behind the scene mover. She didn't want a lot of limelight, and nor did Alan.
her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Miss Wiseman was sort of laid back mover and a shaker.
Hmm.
She didn't want a lot. I'm just repeating. She didn't want a lot of publicity. She just want one thing, Tish, to get the job done. That's all
I
she
love
wanted.
that. I love
That's
that.
all she wanted. And she raised her daughter the same way, as a humble diplomat. Because if you look at Tri, she is always humble, always polite, a spitting image of a mother.
Wow.
And Miss Wiseman always calm. Okay, always calm. And her daughter is the same.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care where you see it, the personality is still the same.
Yeah.
It makes you feel welcome.
Yes.
And that's the kind of funeral home that they ran, and they started off in a old white church building that if you put a fan against it, and Larry does heating and air,
Uh-huh.
that's Larry, just a regular fan, it would have blown it down.
So they've come
But
a
look
long
at it now.
way. They've come a
Yeah,
long way.
but look at it now. And the
Absolutely.
service that they provide, it's just the other day, I attended another homegoing service of Steve Brody's son, and he expressed to me, the loss of his son, and that because of the service that Wiseman provided, that's who he wanted to have his son funeralized by, and, and utilizing the sanctuary, and everything. Beautiful homegoing service. Now,
Absolutely.
Steve, Steve work on cars. I mean, he's just a mechanic, but
Yeah.
he saw
Don't say just
when
us,
his
because we all need a good mechanic.
yeah, yeah. So he just said to me, that's because of the service that they provided. Though it was a difficult time for him, but he recognized who he wanted to provide the homegoing service for his son
Yeah.
there. So both of those individuals, Alan father and his uh, Mrs. Wiseman, are really, really families that you want to just look at and wish that you could have a similar family.
Absolutely. Mr. Floyd, who funeralized Attorney Rogers' father?
I think it's a funeral home from Lombard, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I believe it was. I'm not
Well,
sure.
I think that I think it's so awesome that we get to experience having a little bit of a glimpse into these awesome matriarchs and patriarchs in our community. And not just Mr. Floyd, I'm gonna tell you the honest truth. I can only hope that when I pass away, my children have gained from me in ways that I've seen some of my peers gain from their parents. And I really I appreciate my mother and my father for everything that they've poured into me. And I just hope that I can continue that legacy. And I'm telling you, Floyd, don't you be late getting on this podcast again. Cause look, I know you said you was sitting there at 9 o'clock and just didn't push the button, but my mind went to worst case scenario. And in that window, I said, Lord, I don't know where my co-host is, but God, just let them join in.
Now my mind was, I was working on some campaign issues, and forgot to
To
and
press
forget.
join.
Yeah, I mean, it was,
Don't do
sometimes
that
you gotta,
again, Mr. Floyd.
no, your mother will task a lot. Your mother will task a lot, and I got carried over, into
Yeah.
into that.
That's all
But
right, because it worked out, and I'm just appreciative that again look, I'm thankful even for your guidance and your tutelage. So thank you for being a part of my village. When we talk about other people and how great they are, and we do it after they've passed on, it just always reminds me that we need to, like they say, give people their flowers while they're here. So Floyd, I just want you to know you are not just a powerhouse politically, but you are somebody who this community can look to for sound guidance, to keep us sane and to keep us on the straight and narrow. So I appreciate you for that.
well, let me say this, teaching, and I appreciate that. Many times my daughter, we're together, and she would say to me, "Daddy, now that person can care less about you,
Yeah.
but you speak to them." I said, "Tanya, it doesn't cost me a dime to say hi."
Yeah, because me and Tanya will do the one of these.
Yeah, I said, it doesn't cost me a dime
But
to
may
just
I tell you
hi.
though, Mr. Floyd, you've said that to me before, and now because I've heard you say that, I take the extra effort. It doesn't matter how I feel that you feel about me. I still take the time to at least greet you, because it doesn't cost me anything and it doesn't harm me to show someone kindness.
Well, I hear it oftentimes, you know, from people. And what I have learned at my age, Teach, is that when I have a conversation with you or anyone, and I get the sense that your mind is made up,
Yeah.
and I use the theory, if your mind is made up at the beginning, the middle, and the end, let me agree with you so we can move on to the
Let
next
that be
conversation.
that. Look, Mr. Floyd, it was funny. Well, I'm gonna say this, and then we're gonna hit this last point we got to talk about. But when we were
Yeah.
working on, well, I was working on trying to get that long order of the long leaf pine award for Ted, and the person that I had engaged to work on it just ghosted me and just went silent after saying that they would do it. And I came to you, and it was the 11th hour, and I was like, Mr. Floyd, I got this problem, and I was telling you within 2 days you had it handled, and you said you didn't ask me for help. And when you said that, I was like, I thought to myself, I said, self, you need to learn how to open your mouth and ask for help, because you don't have to struggle trying to figure something out when there are people of influence within your circle that you can ask to help you. But you did not overstep. You did not jump in and say, I'm going to do this, this, and this. You waited on me to say, Mr. Floyd, I'm in trouble. I need some help. And you handled it. But that
Well,
taught me you better open your mouth, girl, and ask for help.
I give you another example, Keisha, and you before we close. I was at the Salvation Army because I call that, you know, my therapy treatment, because you see so many different objects that you can use. And a lady was plugging up some Christmas lights to see, you know, where they work, and she was going to
Yeah.
use Christmas. Make a long story short, and I said to her, you know, how she can use the overlay. If 50% is bad, then you buy the one that's good and you cover that 50%. And so you're getting it for a little bit of nothing, so you still can have a beautiful Christmas. And she asked me who I was, and I told her. And she said, you know, 34 years ago, you told me that I need to quit getting my son out of trouble.
Wow.
You know, now she said the person that he was running with killed somebody.
Wow.
And if he had stayed with that person, he too would have been arrested. He said he drove trucks for 18 years.
Wow.
His whole life has changed only because you told me that I should weigh each action on the part of my child. And he
Wow.
is a better man today. That was 34 years ago. You know,
Look.
she had to walk me through the memory so I can know what actually happened, because we was able to work to get her son out of some difficult situations,
Yes.
you know, because of the influence that he would have, what we call, teaching. You don't understand this. We call the Monday morning quarterback
Yeah.
and the Monday morning attorney, you know, where your friends become your attorney. It's not a
Right.
good,
When they don't even know what they're talking about.
yeah, it's
Don't
not
even
a
have
good
a
idea.
degree from high school and want to tell you some legal stuff.
Yeah. So you need to weigh it. So that's what we do here, Tish. And I've always had a knack to help people, uh, uh, even though and many times you know they can care less about you, but you don't do it because of that. You do it because you have the skill set to help.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
And I
So,
enjoy doing it.
and we appreciate you. We thank you for that. You brought something to my attention this morning, and I want to touch on it before we get out of here, because I think it's important and it speaks to me to character and quality. And I know that other people are going to have a different point of view, but that's okay. Venus de la Cruz put her name in the hat to run for District 2 for county commissioners. But she has recently indicated that she is not going to campaign. Venus is the wife of Freddie De La Cruz, who ran for mayor and is also running for House District 44 this term. Now, Venus made some comments in her article that made me, I've already liked this woman. So let me preface by saying that when I met her, in passing over the last few years, I just feel like she's extremely intelligent. I feel like she's very well poised. I told her husband when he was running for mayor, if your wife was running, she would beat Mitch because she's beautiful, she's articulate, and she's prepared. But that was not her lot in life. She said in this article, Floyd, that her husband convinced her to run for county commissioner. It's interesting what a spouse can convince you to do. And she said that she told him that she did not know if that was God's will for her life, and that she was gonna she registered to run, but that she was gonna submit it before the Lord in prayer. Well, when she did that, and this is why I respect her, when she did that, she came back to her husband and said, I got before God. I went ahead of God. And I'm going to tell you something, Mr. Floyd, if I've learned anything in my 44 years, to be ahead of the will of God is dangerous. You need to be right in keeping in step in time with his timing, because otherwise if you get ahead of him, you're working in your own strength, and even if you win and you look like you're succeeding, it is to your detriment. So when she said that, she said that she decided that she wasn't going to campaign because that she does not believe her life at this time. So when we see her name on the ballot, you still have the opportunity to vote for her, because at the Board of Elections has a rule that you have a certain amount of time after the filing period to be able to withdraw. I think it's 3 days. After that, you're in it. You're on the ballot, whether you campaign or not. So, Floyd, what are your thoughts about that? And do you think that what do you think about that?
Well, everyone has a right to file, and everyone has a right to withdraw.
Mhm.
That that's the political option that you know uh, that is that's there for a candidate there. So at this time, Chief, I just respect her decision about showing that the community would know that she is not going to campaign because it's
Right,
not. In other words, she didn't wait to the day of election
right,
and then to say that you know I didn't campaign because I didn't want to run.
right,
You know, or like some people would announce a campaign at the same time that they're being sworn in for an office. So you can look at the the environment there. So I respect her for her decision early on.
Yeah, I respect the fact that she made that choice too. And I think it'll be very interesting because I think she's the only woman on the Republican ticket. So I think it will be interesting to see how that pans out, whether or not the
Now, when you
constituent
say Republican ticket, are you speaking of
for
here in
District
Cumberland
2.
County?
Yes, for
District?
District 2.
Okay.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. I think that she's the only woman that's running as a Republican for Cumberland County Commissioners District 2. I know
Oh,
that that there is another woman on the Democrat ticket, and she is the current county commissioner, Tony.
yeah, Tony Stewart.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I don't know. I'm pretty sure that Venus de la Cruz is the only female on the Republican ticket for District 2. I did shoot out a text to Jimmy Keefe. I'm waiting on a response from him. I would love for both he and Michael Booth to come on our program and talk about why they decided to step down, talk about the work that they were really desiring to accomplish and what they may feel like they've gotten done in their time as county commissioners.
Well, when you look at it, Keith said, I reached my pedestal. I wanted to see the Civic Center, you know, the crown being
Right.
replaced. And that's this crown jewel.
Right.
You know,
And
he
sometimes
had
it's
reached
better
that.
to go while you're still on top.
Yeah, he
It's better
reached
to
that.
go while you're still on top. So I did put that, I put those feelers out there. We'll see how that goes. Mr. Floyd, I committed to you that I will work on a guest list over the next few days so that we can start bringing some people in to broaden the conversation, because we enjoy having guests, but we're very particular about those people that we like to sit down with, because we want them to be of value to our citizenry, and we don't want people that are going to come on here and blow smoke, because we don't blow smoke. Um, and I want to give you an opportunity to be able to focus on the work of running your campaign, because that is a great deal of work. That's a great
It
deal
is
of
work,
work.
Chief. Let me tell you, people people don't realize running a campaign, you have a lot of people that make commitment. It's just like your mother would say, don't let your eyes be as big as your stomach.
Right.
Okay. And there's a lot of work that is done in running a campaign. It's not like you running for a local office. You're
Right.
and the whole campaign strategy is different when you running for a state office or a national office there. So it requires a lot of you, and the ultimate responsibility lies with you. So you
Absolutely.
have to put in a lot of time,
Because
you
it's
know.
your name on the ballot. And at the end of the day,
Yeah.
win, lose, or draw, your name is on the ballot. So, Mr.
Yes.
Floyd, what are the final words that you want to leave with our wonderful audience?
Just listen to what people say and then evaluate it at the end to see whether or not they are giving you a lot of cow maneuver.
Yeah. Yeah. So, my last 2 cents is this morning in my devotion, I was reminded that we're to seek the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and then that all other things will be added unto us. And so I want to leave our audience with the fact that for me, and for those of us who are believers, and this is for believers, because if you're not a believer, you can't seek this. But if you want to be a believer and you want to figure out how, you can ask me. But we need to be seeking, instead of looking to wealth, we need to be seeking God. We can try and work to be wealthy. There's nothing wrong with that. We can work to be healthy. We can work to do all of these things, but none of these things should be more seeking the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And essentially, his righteousness is really being able to understand his requirements. So go forward today and seek out what God requires of you today, what his requirements are of you today. And then everything else that you are in search of, everything else that you have need of will be added to you, because that's a promise that his word makes. So I'm not going to waste my time today, Mr. Floyd. I'm not going to waste my time trying to figure out what X is doing to Y and why Z trumped X, and I'm not going to waste my time. Today I want to be deliberate about knowing what's required of me, what God's requirements are for me, so that everything else can be added, because added is a passive action. If I add money to your bank account, you didn't have to do anything for me to give you that money. I just added it to your bank account passively. And I want the passive addition. I want that over my life this year. So I'm gonna do my part. And Floyd, I just want to remind everybody that we are your one-stop shop for understanding politics. We are not always going to be your cup of tea, but we're always going to give you the tea.
Well, Tish, and I appreciate that. And I just, since it's, our show, I just like to encourage the people, on March the 6th is to look at Elmer Floyd
For what now? For what?
for the NC House District 42.
And that's the gritty in the city and the word on the curb. Like, share, subscribe, and follow. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And remember, we love you, even if we don't like what you're doing. Y'all take it easy, and we'll catch you on the next episode.